Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another episode of Overbooked, the series where I talk about every single book on my shelf because words have power and this might just open up the portal to another world. Today we are talking about Alix Harrow's The 10,000 Doors of January. I think that's as good as we're going to get for the framing of this. I'm in a weird place. It's fine. Quick disclaimers before we start. I did receive this copy of this book for free from the publisher for review, whenever it was, last year, the year before. Must have been the year before. I was in the office. Yes. Regardless of where it came from, nobody's paying me to talk about books and all opinions are my own. I'm going to keep this as spoiler-free as humanly possible. If you do want to go into this book knowing absolutely nothing, you may wish to click away now and come back when you've read the book. Why are you watching a review video? Go on. I will link the story graph for this book below if you want to find some user-submitted content warnings. I think there are some things that you might want to apply. And I will also say that when planning on reading this book, I would suggest seeking out some Own Voices reviews, just because there's some stuff in this book that Own Voices reviewers can say better than I can. 10,000 Doors of January came out in 2019, a couple of years ago now. There we go, that was when it arrived. Well, I think I would describe it as a fantasy novel that leans more on the literary side of things. It's kind of a portal fantasy, but also sort of not. It walks the line of various different things. Alix Harrow, whose website I will link below. Nope, okay, it's time to hang out with Luna, apparently. Hi, honey. You think you can be quiet while I talk about Alix Harrow? Okay, thank you. Alix Harrow, whose website I will link below, is based in Kentucky. She's written quite a few things at this point. Hugo Award nominated? Or just one? Yes, one. And her most recent book was A Spindle Splintered, which I have not read yet, but it looks like this. Do you think you could go to your bed? I don't trust you to not make gross noises into the microphone for the whole of this. Allow me to read you the blurb. Every story opens a door. In a sprawling mansion filled with peculiar treasures, January Scaller is a curiosity herself. As the ward of the wealthy Mr. Locke, she feels little different from the artefacts that decorate the halls, carefully maintained, largely ignored, and utterly out of place. But her quiet existence is shattered when she stumbles across a strange book, a book that carries the scent of other worlds and tells a tale of secret doors, of love, adventure, and danger. Each page reveals more impossible truths about the world, and January discovers a story increasingly entwined with her own. This was Alix Harrow's debut as well, I should have said. Do you think you could maybe not? Or I can just keep petting you for this whole video. Wait, you're just out of frame. How's that? Yeah? I'll just keep petting you for the whole video. Okay. So this book is very much written for, I would say, the people who were always looking around for doors. I think V. Schwab's talked about that and that being part of her inspiration for some of her books. But it's that classic portal fantasy thing of, did you want to open the door to your wardrobe and find yourself in Narnia? If so, this might be a great book for you. And one of the things I like about this is it explores a bit of the why of doors. I guess it's sort of a semi-academic look at that. It's not actually academic, but within the context of the book. And I found that very interesting. So it's not so much about the worlds that you go to, but about what it's like to live in a world where there are worlds you can go to. You are being incredibly distracting. She doesn't feel bad about that at all. I also think January is a really good character. I did a reread this time around and I remembered January much more annoying than she actually was in this, which was always nice. Always good to discover that character is less annoying than you thought they were. I actually think that by the end of the book, it feels slightly more ensemble cast-esque, and that works much better, I think, because January's not quite strong enough to carry a full story, but there's other stories happening at the same time. And yeah, I enjoy January as a character. I will say I think it's interesting, Alix Harrow's choice as far as I'm aware, white author to write a mixed race main character, especially in a time period where race is significant. There are other characters of colour in this who it sort of comes up, but it's never really hammered home. And I think it's that thing of reading, you have to read this critically. And I think having read books set in a similar time period by authors of colour, you can really feel the difference. And it just feels like this doesn't quite go all the way, is what I would say, specifically on those topics. And like, we could argue till the cows come home about like, well, this book wasn't about that, but also then what? Questions. I was very surprised by how strong this book was on a reread. I thought it was going to be kind of a one and done sort of story. And I'd hung on to it for making the Overbooked video 2 years later. 3 years later. 2 years later. I was pleased by how rereadable it was, and if that's something you like to bear in mind when you're picking up a book, there you go. It's got a lot of rereadability, and there's a good sense of if you know some of the twists and turns, the things that you're leading up to, it's very powerful. Yeah, enjoyable on a reread. I talked about reading it critically. I think it tails off a bit towards the middle. The middle is a bit of a slog. It doesn't quite have as much excitement, and I think it's partly because There's a lot of growing up to do across this book, and the middle is just a bit meh. It's not as strong from beginning to end. The end is very strong, the beginning is very strong, the middle could take or leave. It's also a standalone, which might be a selling point if you're looking to read more books where you don't then need to dig into a 7 or 8 book series. But I think for me, I wanted just a little bit more, especially because anytime you've got this portal fantasy and this idea of there being multiple worlds, you always want more of the worlds, right? Like, that's what I want. I was thinking about it, and I don't need another book about January. Like, I'm good, her story's done, but I'd quite like a companion novel to this. I think just looking at some different worlds, different characters, different aspects of the story, I think that would be fun. If you haven't read Alix Harrow's other book, The Once and Future Witches, I would actually recommend it. I think it's a good book. I think it has some of the similar issues as this one does, but I think that it is an enjoyable story about witches. Like, it's a good time, brings together women's suffrage and witches. Yes, it's a good adventure. Another obvious one is if you haven't read Shannon Maguire's Wayward Children series, which is a series of novellas. They are, in my opinion, stunningly beautiful, and they also deal with this idea of portal fantasy as a mechanic. How does that work in the world, and what's the impact of portals or doors to other worlds on the children who've gone through them and come back and maybe are waiting to go again. They're absolutely stunning. The first one, Every Hearted Doorway, is probably my favourite. The novellas, they won't take very long. They're good fun. And there's another one coming out in January that I must read. AJ Hackwith's Hell's Library series, particularly the second book, Archive of the Forgotten, has similar adventure vibes with a bit of very competent main character getting stuff done, which I enjoy. And I think that series has a lot of similarity for me. And I don't know if it's that classic thing of I must have read them about the same time and I've just made a mental link between the two. But it's a bit by the by. Like, it's fine. That second book involves a lot of going to various different places, which drew some similarities for me. I would say this is a good fun book to read. 10,000 Doors January is a exciting read. It's an adventure. It's a good portal fantasy. If that's something you like, you're probably going to like this. I've said that maybe reading it critically is important, and I do think that's the case. And there's a lot of valid criticisms brought up by Own Voices reviewers. That being said, the prose is really lovely. I like the sort of dual storytelling that you get as part of the story. That's something I always enjoy. And I would say it's so tricky because I don't want to recommend a book that has problematic elements to it. But I do think my kind of philosophy on this in life is that we can read things that we know are problematic so long as we read them critically. And I think that's where I've landed on the whole thing. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Have you got plans to read this? Have you read this? What are your thoughts generally? Let's try and all be kind and nice to each other, because that's nice too. And I've got a dog to pet, so I'm feeling wholesome and nice. I'm very sorry if she's just been making horrible noises into the microphone this entire time. She needed some company. I will also link my review for Alix Harrow's other book if you would like to go and check that out. I think that would be fun. And if you've got any good portal fantasy recommendations, please plonk them down in the comments below. I would love to do like a full portal fantasy recommendations video. I think it would be really good fun. Please let me know if you would like that. I'm just going to put you on camera for like 2 minutes and we'll show everyone how cute you're being while still also being a pain. Yeah? Okay. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also follow me on social media. Come hang out on Discord where we have wonderful chats about books and I post pictures of the most menacing little girl who's ever been. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. Yeah, I'm going to put you on camera. I'm going to do it. Maybe I'll just film you on my phone. Just like, let's show everyone what we're looking at. Ignore the sewing detritus on my floor. Hey! Oh, now you've stopped. She was being such a pain. Yeah. Oh, hi. You can say goodbye to everyone. See, she says, thanks for subscribing. Bye. I'm going to bed now. There's gonna be some bloopers now. Get out of my face. I was very surprised. Thank you. Thank you. Please don't turn off the microphone. Oh, you are a distraction and a menace. I'm being blinded by my rainbow catcher. I don't think it's like actually making me look rainbow though. It's just blinding me. Thank you for that.